Hello and welcome into Fantasy Focus Football. It is Tuesday, November 8th. I am Daniel. To my right is Stephania. To Stephania's right is Field.
Good morning.
Today's show is presented by Geico. Switch to Geico. See all the ways that you could save. Really great to be here with everybody. Excited to see you. Stephania, I feel like I haven't seen you in like a week. Is that true?
I saw you on Sunday.
Oh, yeah, you did see me on Sunday.
Left a lasting impression, apparently.
I forgot about that. Well, it's because I didn't see you for the week before that because the one show that I did last week
I
was
posted a
Thursday.
picture of us on
Stephania,
Instagram. I mean, it meant something to me.
Oh, it's a long football season, love. Anyways.
But we are now at the halfway point. Did you realize that? As today is the start, at least in my opinion, of week 10, which means 9 regular season weeks down, 9 to go. Lots to digest through the first 9 weeks, but the best part is lots to enjoy for the rest of the final 9 weeks.
Lots to enjoy, especially if you're a Lions fan. Really excited to see the second half of the season.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about a couple of bits of news, though, Stephania, and let's start with Josh Allen. The king of fantasy football is having some elbow
Highest scoring player
issues
in all of fantasy this year, Stephania, on a points per game basis.
Yes, I'm well aware because
Carrying a couple of your teams.
I have a lot of shares of Josh Allen, so believe me, I'm paying attention to this one. Look, he has an elbow issue. We saw him on Sunday shaking his arm out after he took a hit. This was really interesting. If you saw any kind of still shot of Josh Allen getting hit in the arm and it was bending his arm backwards, kind of into the position where a baseball pitcher gets when they're winding up to throw, that puts a lot of stress on the UCL, the ulnar collateral ligament. Most people think of this as the Tommy John ligament. And our Chris Mortensen reporting that, in fact, he is dealing with an injury to the UCL and associated nerve issues. The ulnar nerve runs right next to that ligament. That's the one, if you hit your funny bone, it makes your fingers tingle. And that can be involved with this type of injury as well. Now, I tweeted this yesterday. Before everybody panics, there's a whole wide range of outcomes here, from next to nothing, no missed time, just, aggravated it during the game, to something that could alter the course of the season. And Sean McDermott said yesterday that they're still evaluating the situation with Josh Allen, and he expects to touch base with the media again on Wednesday. So what I say is that we don't know yet, and it would be silly to guess as to whether he will or won't miss time, but yeah, everybody's pointing to the fact that he threw this 69-plus yard bomb immediately after, and apparently it's the longest pass in the NFL in the last 6 years, even though it wasn't caught. But no matter. But what was that?
Adrenaline.
It could be adrenaline,
yeah.
But it's also, it speaks to the difference between throwing a baseball and throwing a football. And where you release the football doesn't stress that ligament in the same way as where it would if you were releasing a baseball. So we often see pitchers cannot do anything if they have a significant tear. They try and pick up the ball and throw, they can't. If it's a mild injury or if you're throwing in a different position, it might not be that bad. We've seen players, Carson Palmer back in the day had this, never got it fixed, was able to continue to play. Nick Mullins had an injury where he tore this ligament in half, had it surgically repaired, and obviously is still playing in the NFL. So, there's, again, a wide range of outcomes. We don't know the status yet. We'll update it, but it's definitely, we're paying attention to it.
In leagues where you, Stephania Bell, the just queen of the fantasy injury industry, roster Josh Allen, are you using one of your waiver spots this week on picking somebody up just in case, because it's the kind of injury where you might be without him this week?
Oh, yeah. You absolutely have to pick somebody up or use Case Keenum.
Until we know, right? Like if we find that at 4 o'clock today, hey, all is clear. Let me ask you this. And again, this is complete dummy asking questions here. But there are certain injuries where sometimes our initial tests usually get us fairly close to the conclusion. I know that, as an example, there are several on-field tests that medical professionals can do in which they have a pretty strong sense that's an ACL tear. Imaging and other subsequent testing can confirm it. It's not always perfect, but there are times when you feel like there are certain injuries where you feel like you have a better sense initially. If I'm hearing what you just said correctly, it sounds like with the UCL or whatever he specifically is dealing with, until we have the full battery of testing, we have no idea. Is that an accurate assessment? Or do we feel like at this point, probably not significant or probably is significant?
I think until we have the full battery of testing, which isn't just the testing, it's actually how well can he function, the conversation with the player, because this is one of those where the testing might show something that in a different athlete, specifically a baseball pitcher, you might think was more significant, but in Josh Allen may end up still allowing him to play. Right. So that's why my frustration has been with, Sean McDermott, how can they say they're still evaluating this? Oh, they're very much still evaluating. I absolutely believe that. And a lot of that is dialogue around how they plan to proceed, because there could be different options. They might be consulting with multiple physicians who are equipped to deal with this particular injury. Not everybody, by the way, is an expert in dealing with this injury. So you want to go to the best of the best when you're dealing with a thrower.
And thankfully it is Tuesday. We're going to have our good friend Eric Moody on to talk about what you should do if you do roster Josh Allen.
You should grab, like on principle, you should, because again, even if best case scenario proves to be, hey, he's out for 1 or 2 weeks.
Right.
Still 1 or 2 weeks.
1 or 2 weeks. Right.
And maybe it's a month. Maybe it's 6 weeks. Maybe it's the rest of the season.
I could easily see him missing time. You get the feeling this is a player who's going to want to play if he can.
Sure.
But he also you don't play at 50%.
Right.
I don't mean 50% of his health. I mean, you don't play trying to coach a player like only do this to 50% of your ability. Like if you're going to play, you're going to play.
Right. It's tricky. I mean, I know they're always going to do what's right for the player, but let's be honest, circumstances do matter, right?
Yeah.
If this was the Texans and this was Davis Mills, you might why are we going to put you back out there? We're 1-6-1. We need to think about your long-term health. You're the Bills. You are, in my estimation, and I know the Eagles fans are good. You and the Eagles are Super Bowl collision course potentially. Yeah. Of course, that's part of the equation.
So part of the equation is what do you want to do that's best for the player that still allows you to be in a good position and consider the length of the season is not 17 games for them. Length of the season is the end of February.
We're talking about 12 more games, 13 more games, depending on how far they could potentially advance in the playoffs. But this is a major one. God, it's such a bummer. And if you have Josh Allen, he's been probably carrying your roster, or at least helping you along the way, especially in a year when quarterbacks have been so far down. Before we move on to anything else on these, before we move, I just have one question to ask Stephania that's not exactly tied to this, but sort of tied to this.
Go ahead.
Do you have Josh Allen in the Scott Fish Bowl?
Yes.
Okay, so so I'm sorry about that. Hopefully it's not long, but I will say this.
Davis.
I have a rule, and I always say this on the show. Like, we love the Scott Fish Bowl so much. We were so impressed by Scott Fish, but I love when people are like, yeah, man, I had so-and-so in the Scott Fish Bowl. It's like, there are 3,000 teams, okay? 3,000 teams. I'm sorry, 4,000 teams in the league this year, right? Yeah. So I'm sorry, your team that's in 2,034th place is not going to have Gabe Davis this week. Stephania's in 66th place out of 4,000 people.
No way.
Stephania
again
owns Scott Fish Bowl. Back-to-back years, carrying the ESPN torch for us.
Wow.
Dominant showing from Stephania Bell. The masses are looking for autographs. The masses are looking for advice.
But I fall into 66.
Okay. 66. Well, I think my number literally begins with 2, as in 2,272 or something.
Mine starts with a 3. I'm definitely in the 3,000s. I'm below Fields. So
my thing on Scott Fish Bowl is that I don't want to finish absolutely dead last.
Right.
Yeah.
If I'm in the top 100, cool. Besides that, everything's equal.
Yeah. Right.
Like the difference between
there's 3 tiers in Scott Fish Bowl. It's top 100, everybody else, and then whoever finishes last. Yes, exactly.
Dead last.
Yes, that's what it is.
I know. Yeah, I know. I'm rooting for Josh Allen.
Yeah. We all are.
Reasons.
We Football in general, not just fantasy football. Football is more fun when Josh Allen's out there, obviously.
He's so much fun to watch, and he's having a great year. So.
We're all thinking the best, hoping the best for Josh Allen. All right, Stephania, let's talk about the Green Bay Packers because they have a couple of injuries.
Team.
Yeah. So I'm just going to hand over the torch and let you just do this.
Yes. I mean, I have to consult the notebook because there's 50 injuries, but we'll stick with the ones who are fantasy relevant for now. Aaron Jones had a left ankle injury, left the game in the third quarter. Came back to the sideline, did not come back to the game. He was in a walking boot afterward. The news we got yesterday from Adam Schefter was that x-rays were negative and he, quote, should be able to play this week. So that's good news because the Packers certainly lost a couple people for the season.
He looked very angry waiting on the sideline, wishing he could go back into the game.
Yeah, maybe so. But as we have seen with ankle sprains, they're not necessarily not a big deal, even if it's a lateral ankle sprain, not a high ankle sprain, because look at Jonathan Taylor's. So I leave you with that. Romeo Dobbs, right high ankle injury, crutches, and a walking boot on his right foot after the game. He was injured on the first play, carted to the locker room. Obviously, it's a multi-week injury. You can just tell, but I would say plan on 4 weeks minimum, potentially longer for Romeo Dobbs to be out. And then Christian Watson, this was an interesting one because he had come in to the game coming off the concussion protocol. And originally this was reported as a concussion, But Matt LaFleur said afterward that he did not actually have a concussion. He took a shot to the chest, couldn't catch his breath right away, but they wanted to be proactively smart given the fact that he was coming off a concussion injury. So it sounds like he is okay and should be available this week.
Interesting.
Tough. I mean, that leaves Alan Lazard,
Sammy Watkins,
who, by the way,
but-
no chance. Wouldn't bother. I mean, just he looks lost out there right now for the Packers.
That one, like
the end zone fade where he like cut in at
Rodgers
the
throwing a fade.
Bad.
Sammy Watkins is throwing the slant.
I thought it was a beautiful play, if I'm honest, guys. It was great.
Yeah, for a Lions fan.
But yeah, it's a disaster right now. So it only fortifies that right now there are, well, if Aaron Jones plays, there are 2 startable Packers. Aaron Jones and also Alan Lazard. By the way, if Aaron Jones is out, I still would not totally dismiss the possibility that he doesn't play on Sunday just because these things, as Stephania just referenced, can change over the course of the week. If he is out, big day in store for A.J. Dillon, one would think.
Yep, that's what you would think. All right, let's talk Monday. Do we have any other injuries before we move on?
Chuba Hubbard, I would point out, it's listed as limited on Monday in practice. Today is a big day because they play on Thursday night.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
watch the running back situation.
report.
Oh, yeah, good one. Yep.
All right, let's talk Monday Night Football recap where the Ravens,
Be fairly brief.
beat the Saints. There's not a whole lot from the Ravens other than I'll say this.
I think there are a couple things here.
Kenyon Drake looked really nice.
Yeah, that's my thought here.
Yeah.
Is that Kenyon Drake continues to fill in very admirably in that running back role, that lead running back role, by the way.
Gus Edwards and him, I think last week when Gus Edwards and down were like a split in snaps, right? And he's just taken over this running back's role.
So but I don't know that he will going forward, right? Because they go into
right
the
now,
bye.
without
We think
Gus
maybe
Edwards.
Gus Edwards could be available. He obviously was doubtful to play in this game, did not play last night. So in the event that Kenyon Drake is the only of Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, who of course is on IR, available, then I do think he has some useful fantasy value as, I would say, an RB2. I know we use that phrase a lot, probably too much, but catches the ball effectively, has run the ball effectively, and with all the injuries they have right now amongst our pass catchers, he'll probably get some utilization, you would think, in the passing game. He had 2 catches for 16 yards last night. And then Lamar, it's been okay. It hasn't been great. He lit the world on fire to begin. It doesn't change anything. There's no actionable here, but let me just
I feel badly for him because I feel like he's trying to do everything. I mean, he rushes ball. He was effectively the RB2 for them.
Sure.
He's trying to throw to he doesn't know who. Because it has changed so much in terms of who's available to him.
And that's so
just
tough.
a mess.
Yeah.
And his safety valve, Mark Andrews, was not out there. I feel like the bye is huge
totally
for them, the timing.
But remember, those first 3 weeks, Lamar came out with his hair on fire, right? He goes 20.22 points, 42.62 points, and then 39.42 points. And you're like, runaway MVP candidate, best quarterback in fantasy. Here's his game log since then. And again, I'm not sure, he's still Lamar. You're going to start him. I'm just saying,
Feels like I want to earmuffs this.
Well,
Do I want to earmuffs this?
you wanted him to carry your team in the same way that Josh Allen has carried your team. Here's his fantasy game log: 13.06, 14.76, 16.1, 10.7, 21.82, 17.52. So just one 20-point effort in
Sounds
Lamar's
like you just read
last
me
6 games.
Aaron Rodgers' game log, except for that 21-point game is what it sounded like.
But they're so limited, as Stephania just mentioned, with
It's a
all those
mess.
pass catchers, and defenses are not going to be ever be able to catch up to Lamar as far as running the football goes. But you got to be mindful of your quarterback, and you can't miss. Josh Allen's hurt right now. We've seen so many quarterbacks take
Last
a big
night
toll
I
on
was
them.
holding my breath because Lamar's not afraid to take he's taking the
totally.
contact. He's
Yeah.
getting tackled. He's getting taken down. He's a runner, and I understand that that's the game. But I just kept thinking they can't lose him too.
I was also shocked that there's no other pass catcher here. I thought Isaiah Likely was going to be more involved.
Yeah,
Devin
I
Duvernay,
know.
they were going to
Me
find
too.
somebody, right? But there's just nobody
Just
outside
spread
of
it
Mark.
around.
That's what
Whoever,
it is.
oh, you're open. Okay.
It just feels like it's this. We're going to run the ball as much as we can, and we're going to let Lamar just find a few guys here and there.
And by
It'll
the
be
way,
Mark Andrews,
this could persist.
Yeah.
The Ravens' next 7 games, 7, after they come back from a bye, are all against teams that right now have a losing record. So this could be the formula, right? The defense has turned around. We don't need to throw the ball 40 times in a game.
You're looking to win games.
You just got to win games. And that was what happened last night for the Baltimore Ravens. Isaiah Likely did find the end zone on a really, really well-designed play. It was this fake quarterback sort of jet sweep.
I got all excited.
yeah.
I was like, oh, there's going to be more of this.
Yeah, they kind of did a quarterback designed, it looked like Lamar was just going to take it and just run up the right sideline. And then right before he reached the line of scrimmage, throws to Isaiah Likely, who was wide open for a 24-yard touchdown. But Big play and certainly is a really, really talented guy until Mark Andrews returns. But volume has been a problem for Isaiah.
Yeah.
Like, keep him on the radar, though. Keep him on the radar.
Tight ends had a big day in this game, Field. Juwan Johnson on the other side. I know he's not like a huge fantasy guy in 10-team leagues,
No,
but
he's not. Well, for those of us that are playing in the war room and are desperate, you have Juwan Johnson, who found the end zone and may or may not have saved my bacon. I want to take a moment to personally thank Juwan, his family, those who have loved him and
the guy who
his
didn't
journey.
push him out of bounds at all or even try to tackle him.
I didn't actually need that. Like, I needed just
Okay.
at that point, I just needed literally one catch. It could have been a catch for I think like minus 3 yards, and it still would have been good enough.
Okay.
But oh my God, the sweat was real. Like, I don't understand. Like, I want an alien to come to my house and watch me during Monday Night Football some week, because like the reactions that I have.
Oh, yeah.
Every week there's some sort of matchup that you're decided. You're like, oh my God, I need this, but not that. If they looked, they'd be like, what is wrong with this person? They think I'm the crazy one. I mean, it's just pathetic. Like, I need to really reevaluate some things in life, you know? Like, thankfully, my daughter's not old enough to, like, understand. She's asleep by that point, but just, like, I might have some issues, guys.
Maybe, but that's what
You know what? The good thing is you're not alone. It's
Okay,
a
yeah,
group.
that's right.
It's a group. You
Yeah,
can
we're all
feel
in
it's
this
a safe
together.
space,
We're all in this together.
comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few
I think
million of us out there.
you mentioned earlier about how there's like two guys that you start in this offense, right? Kind of feels like the Saints is sort of the same way. It's Alvin Kamara and it's Chris Olave, right? Is there anybody else in the Saints that you feel comfortable starting on a weekly basis?
Nope.
Not right now.
Nope.
Not right now.
Not close. I mean, not close, yeah.
Chris Olave has established himself. I feel like, listen, this was a tougher game. 9 targets, which is you love 9 targets. 6 catches for 71 yards, 13.1 fantasy points. Clearing away the best rookie wide receiver in this draft class right now.
Watching it.
Garrett Wilson's been really good.
Garrett Wilson isn't getting used the same way that Chris Olave
Well,
is.
but you look at the numbers, like the raw totals, they're like right there next to each other. But as far as fantasy utility is concerned, absolutely, it's Chris Olave.
And this is the thing: if the Jets commit to using Garrett Wilson, I would love that, because Chris Olave. The one thing that Chris Olave did was he has just been quarterback agnostic, regardless of who's been there. That dip to Zach Wilson was tough for Garrett Wilson if they can get back onto it.
Also, we know Michael Thomas is not coming back.
Right.
Jarvis Landry's still out. So the development of Chris
need him.
Olave has
He's gonna be the
accelerated.
guy.
Yep.
I need him for sure.
Love it.
Yeah, and Kamara, tough night at the office. 3 catches, 32 yards. That part's not dominant, but again, like compared to where it was at the beginning of the season, you take 3
take it.
catches.
Yep.
They got bottled up. You know, the Saints are a frustrating team, and you know, I'm fairly deep in the weeds on my Saints Twitter people, and I hear you all. I know they are very, very frustrated because this is a team that is extremely disappointing through 9 games. The offense lacks punch consistently. The defense is a mess right now. Some of their big ticket free agent signings have been what look like whiffs through the first 9 games. It's a frustrating time right now. But Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, that's it for fantasy.
That's
at
it.
the moment.
All right. We are going to talk about getting on or getting off the fantasy roller coaster with a couple of players here. And this is brought to you by Geico. Switch to Geico. See all the ways that you could save. These players have been all over the map this season. So we're talking about, are we comfortable counting on these guys the rest of the way, or are we going to steer clear? This is not just for next week, but it's just like a little bit of,
general.
halfway point, like we said.
Here's the problem.
Go ahead.
I like roller coasters.
I love roller coasters.
I don't like this. I don't
sometimes.
like this roller
Right.
coaster.
Fantasy roller coasters, a
Fantasy
lot
roller
worse than real
coaster
life roller coasters.
Is not fun.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about this first one. Trevor Lawrence, he's quarterback 15 on the year, and here's the setup.
Okay.
He's got 5 top 12 finishes, but 4 finishes outside the top 20. Are you trusting him rest of the season? When I look at this schedule, Kansas City, I actually sort of like that. I mean, I think he's going to have to throw. He's going to have to be utilized and involved in that game. Bye week, don't love. Then comes back and gets the Baltimore Ravens, who can be beat, and the Detroit Lions. I think that I'm in on Trevor Lawrence being at least a streaming option here over the next little bit. Bye week notwithstanding. Like, he's somebody that I am trusting as I get towards the fantasy
I
playoffs.
think that's fair, Daniel. Is that like definitely not in the must-start conversation yet for me. He has 5 straight games with 0 or 1 passing touchdowns.
Not great.
He's been saved by running the football a little bit more, but we're not talking about, and I can't even compare people to Justin Fields, right? Because he's off the charts. But we're not even talking about like Kyler Murray rushing attempt level. Like, we're talking about better than the statues, but not elite level running for Trevor Lawrence. And he's, he is the definition of a roller coaster player right now, too, by the way, right? Like, the promise. He's got 3 games with an 80% completion percentage or better, but he also watched that game in London against the Broncos where it's like Justin Simmons is 4 feet away from him. It's the goal line, and he throws the ball right to a player who wears the other jersey, and it's like a touchdown off the board and an interception on the board. So he's still not quite there, but I think as a streaming option as we get into the back half of buys, reasonable. Of those matchups you mentioned, the only one that I actually really like is Detroit. And even Detroit played better this past week against the Green Bay Packers.
Are you on or off the roller coaster, would you say? I'd say I'm on the roller coaster.
I think I'm on as a streaming
option. That's fine, yeah.
Not as a starter.
Doesn't mean to be a starter, but just you're considering them within fantasy, right? Yep. I also think, really quickly to the point, if Travis Etienne becomes a viable pass catcher within this offense, that's going to do a whole lot for Trevor Lawrence from that standpoint.
Yeah, at this point, I'm not expecting it only because they're getting
stop it. Talk into existence.
No, but I'm just saying, like, there are a lot of things that we could ask for more of, but like Travis Etienne's use is just ridiculous right now, right? I mean, you can't ask for much more than what that guy's been for the past month.
4 less carries and 4 more targets.
Ooh, that would be nice.
Trevor Lawrence.
Why don't you just dial up Doug Peterson and have a little
I'll call him. I'll ask Mike to call him. All right, let's talk about Geno Smith next. Quarterback 9 on the season, Stephania. He has 4 top 7 finishes, but also 4 as quarterback 15 or worse. His upcoming schedule, he's playing Tampa this week, but in Germany.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, we have a game in Germany.
I think it's the longest trip ever.
Yeah.
I think it's the longest trip in NFL
history.
Seattle to Germany.
Yeah. I don't love that for all the reasons that have to do with travel.
That's going to be tough. They got a bye week after that, which is nice, I guess. I mean, you need to if you're going to travel to Germany.
It's fair.
And then the Raiders and the Rams.
Bucs aren't taking it. The Bucs are not taking a bye after Germany, by the way.
Are they not?
They're taking. The NFL gives a team the option if you want to take it right after the international game or not. Obviously, Tampa is a much shorter trip than Seattle is to Germany, so they may be saying, "Hey, 6-hour flight. It's like going to Seattle from Tampa
like a
in general. So
flight.
It's not short, but it's also not probably 12 hours, whatever Seattle is dealing with. So
where are you at on Geno Smith, on or off the roller coaster for him rest of the season, Stephania?
Can I wait and see how some of the other quarterbacks are doing?
You cannot. That's not how roller coasters work.
No, but this is what's hard about halfway through the season, right? Because you got a mixed bag with Geno Smith. At the start of the year, we were talking about after a handful of games, this shocking start out of Geno Smith, who all of a sudden is consistently finding himself in the top 10, top 15 of our quarterback options. Yeah. But now, I'm not feeling as good about him as I was a few weeks ago. I don't love this game in Germany, but I do love against the Raiders and the Rams.
Yeah.
These next 2 weeks might be tough from that.
Yeah, that's what. So
I would say over the next 4 games, I do have some concerns in 3 of those 4 weeks. Obviously the bye, and then to Stephania's point, Bucs defense is still carrying. They're for the most part doing their job, and then the Rams defense has been stingy against quarterbacks this year. But I'm on the roller coaster because we've kind of net what more can you ask for out of Geno, right? No one came into the season saying you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to draft Geno Smith as my starting quarterback. So he has sort of settled in as a fringe QB1. And he is remarkably efficient. He continues to lead the NFL in completion percentage, over 70%, which is a ridiculous figure. So while his volume is lower than most, he has just 1 game with 35 passing attempts. If you're completing 21 of 28 passing attempts, or even better than that, then you don't need to throw the ball as much as others may have to. And then
if you're getting passing touchdowns.
Yeah, which he is. He's got 6 of his past 7 games. He has at least 2 touchdown passes, and you have really good receivers.
I was just going to say,
you've got an offense that's moving the ball effectively with a good running game
really
as well.
Good running back, yeah.
And he's settled as a borderline QB1.
I think he probably hangs out there for the most part.
Somewhere like quarterback. I can't imagine too many weeks where he climbs above quarterback 8 in my rankings, and I can't imagine too many weeks where he falls below quarterback 15 in my rankings.
It feels like Ken Walker and what he has done here the last couple of weeks has helped Geno have consistency, because I think without that running game, we'd probably see more of a boom or bust type Geno, where they have to throw a bunch. They're going to have to try to stay in games. But because they're able to run the ball so well, because they're able to stay in those games, they're
it's
being efficient.
The most balanced Seahawks.
It's a very balanced and efficient offense.
A long time, which is the crazy, crazy thing. I mean, did you see, what did they do? On the Seahawks Twitter, they posted something that made me laugh.
Well, I didn't see that specifically you're referring to, but Pete Carroll, everybody's making all these comments that are making you feel like.
I think the Seahawks posted "Let's ride." I'm not sure.
They may have. Yeah. Yikes. But yesterday, Pete Carroll, there's all kinds of comments about how Pete Carroll talking about the dynamic between Geno Smith and offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. It just sounds like harmonious.
Harmonious. That's
Yeah.
a good
in
word.
Seattle right now.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that it was quite harmonious despite what may have seemed the way
And
that things were
everything's starting to
going.
balance the yin and the yang. They got the run game going.
Yep.
They found Kenneth Walker, despite their unfortunate with Chris
Rashad
Carson
Penny
and Rashad Penny
yeah.
and all
Yep.
that. So who knew?
right,
As
let's-
long as the 49ers beat the Seahawks, I'm okay with it.
That's what matters. We got one more quarterback here. This one seems obvious. We'll definitely
easy.
dive
Yeah.
into Justin Fields later on in the show, too,
Yeah.
with Eric Moody. But you're riding the Justin
Oh
Fields
my
train.
gosh. How can you not? This is true progression.
Yeah.
This is what improvement looks like. This is what a quarterback who's comfortable in his skin and comfortable with the offense looks like. Yeah. And he has just been a revelation in the last few
Who's he
years.
get this next week, Field?
He plays your Lions.
Oh, great.
Plays your Lions this weekend. So, yeah, I mean, let's not belabor this one too much, right?
So-
I mean, it's one of the great stories in the NFL
Yeah.
right now. Justin Fields, who has
to watch.
so many traits, is he's shining right now. He
really
deserves
is.
all the bit of praise he's getting. And I mentioned last week how, the model is like Jalen Hurts from last year. Jalen Hurts did it for the full season, and my confidence that Justin Fields will do it for the full season has grown incrementally from where we were last week. And as far as athletes go, again, Lamar sets the bar, but Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, they're right there in that next tier of the most dynamic quarterbacks in open space.
Yep.
And it was on display again this past
I was
Sunday.
going to say he had that one play where he was like, "Joot, joot, joot," like he
Oh,
got
yeah.
away from like three guys and
They need like a GPS on
Yeah,
him during
yeah.
games to see how many miles
Oh,
he
they
actually
have 'em.
runs. I'm sure they do.
They do. They're tracking it all. So
Two separate plays this past weekend where Justin Fields reached over
I was
20
gonna say,
miles per hour.
yep.
Only quarterback to do that in a game this year. So he's fast. I mean,
That's
it's just a joy
crazy.
to watch. It's a joy to watch, and Eric Moody will enlighten us more. But if you have top waiver claim, if you play in a fab system, like go get Justin Fields right now.
Especially against the
So I'm
Detroit
on the
Lions this
roller
next
coaster.
week.
Well, and then they
Detroit
play-
Lions and then Atlanta.
and then the Jets have been playing tough, but then Green Bay. So like he's
Wow.
got a nice.
Yeah, and the thing about it though is that like there aren't a lot of defenses, like even the really, really good defenses, there are very few that are equipped to slow down an awesome running quarterback. There's just there's so few awesome running quarterbacks that there are in turn so many defenses that are built around the concept of first stopping a rushing quarterback. So
Yep.
the Jets are legit defensively, but that might be a more dramatic impact on a pure pocket passing quarterback than it would be on a guy who's so good on the ground like Justin Fields is.
All right, let's talk about some running backs
I need
here.
to get off the roller coaster a little bit here. So start throwing me some running backs.
Deal, yeah. Ezekiel Elliott, running back
You
26.
guys were never on.
Yeah,
so
we're off.
you guys were off
3
already.
top 20 finishes, 3 outside the top 35. Field, you're off the Zeke roller coaster? You're on the Zeke roller coaster?
I'm off.
You're
Yeah,
off.
I mean, again, just the upside is so limited here with Zeke. Beyond the fact that he's splitting time more than ever this season, beyond the fact that he is a total non-factor in the passing game, he has one game this year with more than 5 receiving yards. He has limited explosiveness. He has just one 20-plus yard rush. Tony Pollard has 5 20-plus yard rushes. So Zeke is plotting his way to like flex territory. And if that's what you want in your fantasy football team, congratulations.
He is a touchdown-dependent flex play right now.
He is, but I will still say, because I'm not as negative as Field is on Zeke, even though I can appreciate that Tony Pollard looks like a different guy on the field. But he had one game with Dak, and that's where the receiving yards come into play. And they need to get back together to have him provide you something. Look, I drafted him as an RB2. And still waiting for the payoff on that.
Yeah.
But I need to use him. I have leagues where that is what I need. And so I am counting on him being a threat in the red zone and hopefully getting a touchdown and paying off in that way. But you can't count on it. I wouldn't blame you for being off the roller coaster.
And at least the Cowboys have made it very clear, or Jerry Jones has made it very clear, that Zeke Elliott is not going away, regardless of what Tony Pollard looked like last week or how nice he looks running the football. They're going to split time, period. So, all right, let's talk about Tyler Algier. Speaking of splitting time, Field, Cordell Patterson came back last week. You and I have an unfortunate bet between Cordell Patterson and Kareem Hunt that it looks like you might win.
Yeah, we'll see.
I love Tyler Algier. I love the usage that he's been getting, and he is in a super run-heavy offense, right? But I think I have to be off the roller coaster with the return of Cordell Patterson. As much as I love the guy, he doesn't get the receiving work. And Cordell Patterson is the guy they want to use.
Yeah, I'm with you, Daniel. So the way that a player who's in a timeshare keeps his job is if he is A, the unquestioned, like, I'm going to be the goal line guy.
Yep.
B, I'm going to get 5 targets per game.
Pass catcher, yeah.
Or C, he's just like, he's so talented that he could break off a big explosive run. Maybe this is a Tony Pollard example, right? Where it's like, yeah, he might get you a 35-yard rush in half the games he plays. I don't think Tyler Algier checked any of those boxes. I mean, Cordarrelle Patterson scored the short touchdowns this past week. They don't really throw the running backs at all. They don't throw to anybody in Atlanta.
That's fair.
And Algier is going to make his hay in this league he is going to be the kind of guy that I just used the word plod to describe Zeke. Tyler Algier is a plodder as well. He is big, thick, physical runner, but not the kind of guy that's going to, wow you at the NFL Combine. He did not wow people at the NFL Combine this past year, which is why he was a 5th-round pick, a really solid player at BYU, but I think that you're expecting more like 3.5, 4 yards a carry as opposed to 4.5, 5 yards.
And him and Caleb Huntley have done a great job of literally being able to keep that team alive.
Huntley's still playing.
Yeah.
So, if you throw in a third one and it's like, how do you expect 3 running backs to all contribute for fantasy? The answer is unlikely.
They can't.
Off the roller coaster.
All right, Stephania, Leonard Fournette, running back 11 on the season. He has 3 top 12 finishes and 3 straight outside the top 15.
This is weird to me because it's more than just what Leonard Fournette can do. Okay. So remember at the start of the season when it was all Lenny?
Yep.
And he was doing everything. And then he made the reference to like other guys needed to step up because he couldn't basically play, 85% of the snaps. But apparently he was upset about how little he was being used this week. And then Todd Bowles didn't really know about it. And I don't know what's going on there in terms of, he had to be consoled about the fact that he was
He had to be consoled.
Consoled. That was the report that who knows?
I don't know.
I don't know. He looked a little, he looked a little upset that he wasn't being utilized more. So it goes one of two ways. This is why I'm having trouble answering the question. That either stays that way or it goes back to, hey, when he was at his best is when Tom Brady was like looking for Leonard Fournette, dumping off passes to him time and again. That's where he really excelled for you in fantasy. Yeah. So if you look at, I don't know, against Seattle, I don't even know what to do with that game.
Yeah,
Cleveland, New Orleans. I think that he's going to pick back up because the last time he got upset about not being used, you know what happened? He got more volume.
Yeah. To channel my inner Field Yates from 5 weeks ago, because of how bad the running back position is, like you can't be off of this roller coaster. He's still too involved in this offense. All the things you're saying is right, but how do you go away from him?
Last week he felt
Field, like how do you not start somebody in this offense who's still getting some usage? Like he's running back 11. I'm not off the roller coaster, regardless of what it looks or feels like for somebody that's running back 11 for me.
The Bucs are keeping you just close enough that you have to continue to start these guys, but frustrating you enough that you're asking yourself, should I keep doing it every single week? We'll talk about Chris Godwin in just a moment, but think about the numbers here, right? Tom Brady had 58 passing attempts. 58 this past week. That's a massive number. Chris Godwin, again, we'll talk about him more, but go look at, I'll save that.
Let's save it.
For Lenny, he's the number 1 pass catching back in an offense that throws the ball a ton, that's quarterbacked by Tom Brady. And while I think there's a chance that Rachaad White's role will continue to grow more and more and more, the most valuable thing that Leonard Fournette can see week in and week out is 5 or so targets. And that to me seems likely to sustain. I'm on the running back roller coaster with Leonard Fournette. I know it hasn't been elite this year, but you know something? Still good enough that he's going to be in your lineup every single week.
1,000% with you on that roller coaster. Sitting right next to you, we're buckling our seatbelts together, Field. All right, we are going to pay some bills and then come back and talk about Chris Godwin like Field teased. But first, Stephania.
Geico asks, how would you love a chance to save some money on insurance?
I've been meaning to look into that.
Of course you would. And when it comes to great rates on insurance, Geico can help. Like with insurance for your car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and RV. Even help with homeowners or renters coverage. Plus, add an easy-to-use mobile app, available 24-hour roadside assistance, and more, and Geico is an easy choice. Switch today, see all the ways you could save. It's easy. Simply go to geico.com or contact your local agent today.
Football season is here and nothing beats seeing your favorite team live. Not only does Vivid Seats have great NFL ticket prices, they're also the official ticketing partner of ESPN. And with Vivid Seats rewards, when you buy 10 tickets, you get the 11th one free. Download the app or visit vividseats.com today. Vivid Seats. Life happens live. Receive a reward credit equal to the average price of the 10 tickets purchased, excluding taxes, fees, and processing costs. See vividseats.com/rewards for terms and conditions. All right. We led in to the live read with Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about, we've been talking just about these Bucks all together. How do you bench a guy that's getting the kind of target volume that Chris Godwin is getting from a Hall of Fame quarterback in an offense that's throwing the ball almost 60 times a game?
All right. So good. We got to go process first results here with Chris Godwin. So I'm still in. I want you to take a look at Chris Godwin's targets over the past 4 games. Let me pull this up. I thought I had it on my phone, and of course, now I have struck out from what I was looking at. Let me get it right here. Okay, so Chris Godwin, again, over the last 4 games, targets 12, 13, 11, and 10. Again, 12, 13, 11, and 10. So double. He's started and finished 6 games for the Bucks this season. He has at least 10 targets in 5 of those 6. By the way, in every one of those 6 games, he has at least 6 catches. There are 2 massive mitigating factors for Chris Godwin so far this season, and the question is whether you trust that either of those things will turn around. I am confident that one will get a little bit better. I'm not confident in the other. Chris Godwin has become Julian Edelman in terms of the way in which he is running routes right now, right? Everything is at or near the line of scrimmage. He's averaging 9.6 yards per catch this year. 9.6 yards. Now, what's the reason behind that? My best guess is that the Bucks have so many offensive line concerns right now that it's really hard to throw the football down the field when your quarterback wants to get the ball out quick because he's about to get hit. Beyond that, he's yet to find the end zone. So I don't think the yards per catch is going to change dramatically. I just think it's really hard to all of a sudden become a good offensive line and turn 9.5 yards per catch into 14 yards per catch. He's going to find the end zone, though, at some point, right? He has to. He just has to.
Does this feel like, would you more expect this type of production based on the way the offense is utilizing him to proceed this way rest of season? Or do you think that eventually there's a little bit more righting of the ship and he's not just this possession receiver in an offense? Because if the offense can't get better, it's not about what Chris Godwin's doing, right?
I think he has elite volume the rest of the way. I think he has very average yards per catch the rest of the way. And I think he finds the end zone a few times.
A couple times.
Like, I don't know how Tom Brady has continued to not find the end zone this season. It's one of the great what-ifs of this NFL year, in a year that there have been a lot of crazy hypotheticals. So, yeah, I mean, I'm still riding the wave. It's frustrating, but...
Here's a hypothetical, real quickly. You want to say something? Go ahead.
Well, I have... What's hard to know is how much, if the offensive line doesn't change, I'm not sure we get a better result out of Chris Godwin. However, I think Chris Godwin is a better player and a healthier player in the second half of the season. So, you know, when he first came back, he's coming off that ACL injury and we're sort of at controlled utilization, but has a hamstring injury right away. And then he's got to recover from that. And then they're dipping him back in. And to me, I would imagine they're not setting him up in any way. Not that he was necessarily a perimeter guy, but they're not going to really encourage him in those situations to stretch the field. I think as he is a stronger, better runner, his yards after the catch may improve. Like he may be better in one-on-one matchups than he was earlier in the season. That doesn't improve the offensive line, doesn't necessarily change the structure of how they run the offense. But I think there's potential for him to be better in the back half of the season.
Throwing out trade deadline, feels like Chris Godwin, if you're just a team that's crushing it this year, Chris Godwin just feels like an awesome buy low opportunity because while he might not do anything, if you look at a guy that's getting that kind of target volume, it's just, if anything starts to go right in that offense, probably it's not going to take a whole lot to acquire him, I wouldn't think. You know, it would depend.
He's yet to be a top 20 wide receiver for a week, so it probably won't be a prohibitive cost. Yeah, it's frustrating.
It's at least a thought.
Again, I would do that.
And the silver lining, by the way, is that you didn't pay a premium price on him.
Right.
He was being drafted outside the top 20 of wide receivers, so it's not like you drafted him as wide receiver 11. You know, this is not Keenan Allen minus the health concern, right? This is just a rough patch right now for Chris Godwin and the entire Bucs offense. I'm 1,000% grasping at a straw here. I'm admitting that, but maybe that win on Sunday turns the Bucs season around.
Maybe
you're looking for seminal moments sometimes, and I know that it wasn't exactly a pretty win, but still.
Tom Brady celebrated it. Yeah.
He described it
like turned a corner.
It's bleeping awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe You never know.
That's
You
right.
never know.
That's right.
And then he posts with a W.
Yeah.
Like, I
that's-
definitely think this. I think you're on something.
All right, let's talk Adam Thielen here, wide receiver 33 on the season.
Can I just correct one thing? I screw people up here because I said that the Bucks have a bye in. They did not have their bye after the Seahawks. They do. I totally miscalculated.
Oh,
So
they
my
have
bad.
it immediately after.
Yeah,
I
dude.
thought maybe
We talked
it
about
was
that
later
with
in the
Leonard
season.
Fournette. No, we said it with Leonard Fournette. Remember they get the
Well,
bye and then
Yeah,
the
I
but
said
earlier
that
I was
said
thinking that they
was
didn't
done
have-
by me.
yeah.
So I'm a big dumb.
That's okay. No worries, Field. That's all right. All right. Because of that, you have to answer a question about the Vikings wide receiver. Adam Thielen, wide receiver 33 on the year. 5 top 30 finishes. Did you know that top 30 is like barely startable? And then 3 outside the top 50. With the addition of TJ Hawkinson, with Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook and all the things that is that offense, I'm probably off the roller coaster here for Adam Thielen because TJ Hawkinson, I think, is going to come in and just take enough off of the plate of a little bit. He's not going to take it away from Justin Jefferson. So I am off of the Adam Thielen roller coaster because of that. Stephania, Field, you guys.
No, he's still getting volume. I mean, that's the thing is like I think at this point you're looking for guys who get volume.
Yep, I'm with Stephania.
I'm still on the roller coaster with Thielen because that part hasn't changed, and it didn't change with TJ Hawkinson coming in, at least not yet.
So at the very top of the wide receiver market, you're looking for guys that are consistently seeing 10 targets per game.
Yep.
Right. That's what makes the Tyreek Hills and the Cooper Kupps and players like that very unique. That next tier, I think 7 targets per game is a very reasonable barometer, especially in a good offense. Adam Thielen has 7 targets in every game since week 2.
Yeah.
So he had week 1, he had 4. Every other game since then, at least 7 targets. So I'm on the roller coaster here for Adam Thielen. Again, expectations may not be the same as what they were for what they are for other players that are, wide receiver 12 or 15 on our board. But I don't think where you got him and what he has been valued as so far, I think those are pretty similar.
Yep.
That's fair.
And by the way, how are the Vikings 7-1? I can't believe it. They sort of
6 games
The
winning by
NFC
one
North.
score.
Yeah,
they
I
tend,
know.
Listen, these things
Sneaky.
do tend to even out over time. I'm very happy for the Vikings.
They have a bit of a tough schedule.
They play the
Bills.
Bills this week.
Then the
So,
Cowboys.
well, it was a good test here coming
Yeah.
up for the Vikings, but we'll see now.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
However-
After that dance on the plane for
Stop.
Kirk Cousins.
Stop.
But they might get Case Keenum this week, right?
Yeah, true. But they're still going to face the Bills defense.
No,
Although
I know.
they've
I'm
been
just
banged
saying
up.
though,
Yeah,
they're just
yeah.
like you'd feel differently about the game if it was Case Keenum versus Josh Allen, right? Oh, by the way, like their game against the Dolphins, yeah, Skylar Thompson, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and he got hurt, and then all of a sudden it became Teddy Bridgewater. But it's just like they've had this weird run of. Vikings fans are going to be mad. I'm not trying to poo-poo your 7-1 start. It's great, right? But it's like there is the refrain. Why aren't the Vikings getting the same level of respect as the Eagles or something? Like, here's why. The Eagles have not trailed for a single play in the second half of a game this year.
Yep.
A single play.
Yeah.
The Vikings have won 7 games. 6 of them have been by 1 score or fewer. If you go through the history of the NFL, one thing that tends to even itself out and is often more about luck than it is like a certain skill is 1-score game results. So those things tend to come back down to earth.
I saw a tweet, I'm going to not get this right, but it was from Rich Eisen. And I know he's not the only one that's tweeted out that, like, coming into this week, the Eagles had scored more points in the second quarter or the second half than like 5 NFL teams had the entire season.
The second
Something like-
quarter Eagles is a real thing.
That's what it is.
Real thing. Oh, yeah.
All right, let's talk about another wide receiver here because this guy might be the real thing too. Rondale Moore.
Okay.
Oh,
DeAndre Hopkins comes back, right? No Hollywood Brown. And Rondale Moore, last 2 weeks, has looked absolutely fantastic, getting a ton of volume here. I'm on the Rondale Moore roller coaster as a streamer that you need, especially when it comes to flex plays. I love him this week.
Yeah, 2 things I'll point out is, one, he's been playing a ton in the slot, and that's what he should be doing. Rondale Moore is
Can't be outside.
5'8", 200 pounds.
Yep.
Right? If he's running perimeter routes, remember on Thursday Night Football a few weeks ago, he had a goal line fade.
yeah.
You're like, he's the smallest guy in the field. Like, fades are to take advantage of players like Mike Evans, not Rondale Moore.
Yeah, but now they have DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, so
back,
D-Hop, but he's been playing in the slot. That's
Yeah.
really good. And the other thing is just, we probably don't have a concrete update right now, but when Hollywood Brown returns, that changes things, but it sounds like he's probably still a ways away.
Yeah, it sounds like he's still a ways away.
Well, they get the Rams, they get the 49ers, and then the Chargers, and then they have their bye.
Got it.
So it's going to be
They have some tough matchups.
there's some tough matchups, but 8, like you said, Phil, 8 targets in consecutive games.
He had that one game in between where he had 1 catch for 31 yards. Other than that, he's been very, very target heavy. Play Rondell Moore in the slot. He's like Curtis Samuel, right? Like play those guys at or near the line of scrimmage, get them touches both as a runner and a receiver, and they can really, really make an impact on your offense.
Stephania, we're going to talk about the Rams here. And one of the things that we've been hearing from the Rams is there is a potential rumor. They've been trying to find some, ways to be able to get some wide receiving help. OBJ, is there an option here? Where is his health at? Is this something that we should be looking forward to as fantasy managers?
Well, if you follow him, I mean, it certainly sounds like he's letting teams know that he's available. And by all accounts, sounds like he's doing really well. The thing that I think people need to remember, though, is there has never been an elite wide receiver who's come back from an ACL revision surgery. That's what it's called when you have a second ACL surgery on a knee that's already had an ACL reconstruction. It's a revision. The timetable for recovery is different. The follow-up data on those repairs, it's not as strong as after a primary ACL. Now, Odell Beckham is one of a kind and could go out and break the mold on this, but I think we need to be careful about assuming he's going to come in somewhere and be the savior of the team. We don't really know what he's going to look like. Look at everybody else coming off ACL surgery this year and ask yourself the question, why do you suddenly feel like Odell Beckham Jr. is going to be completely different? Remember, when he came back last year, he was supposed to be ready, and then he wasn't, and he struggled. And then ultimately he gets traded and goes to the Rams, and they end up winning a Super Bowl with him, and then he tears it. So he didn't even have a full season. I just think that needs to be part of the discussion. It's not like he's going to come in and everybody's like, oh, where's he going to go? Because if he goes to the Cowboys, like all of a sudden they're going to have Odell Beckham Jr. Just temper the expectations.
I'm off the roller coaster, and I have no reason really to feel confident that OBJ is going to be someone for my fantasy team down the stretch.
If you're cooking with grease right now and your team's at or near the top of the standings and you have an extra bench spot, that's fine. Especially because it certainly seems like the Cowboys could be the landing spot here for Odell Beckham Jr. Jerry Jones not shying away from that topic.
It would so fit with like the way they do things, right?
But and by the way, it would help them, right?
Yeah,
like Michael Gallup still coming back.
Yeah, but there's an example. Michael Gallup, who is going to be great when he comes back, coming off ACL. Here's a guy coming off his second one in a row.
Sure.
And you're going to bring him in to save the day because you're lacking in the receiver department.
I guess like my thought would be like maybe not save the day, but help enhance what is a little bit of a weakness right now for them beyond CeeDee Lamb. So if you are in the middle of the pack and these next few weeks with, you got 4 teams on a bye this week, like I know I was looking at some of our War Room League teams for this upcoming weeks. There are players, there are people who need to replace 5 starters this week.
Yep.
So if you're in that spot, I wouldn't be moving mountains to acquire Odell, but he intrigues me.
Is Tyler Higbee still a starter? Phil, are you
off?
Are you on or off the roller coaster here? Because Tyler Higbee started out with so much volume to start the season, and then the last 3 weeks have been like
let me ask you this.
Awful.
Do you like players that average 1 catch for 7.3 yards per game?
I love Kyle Pitts, so maybe.
I think Kyle averages 6.3 yards per game.
Okay.
This is 7.3 yards per game. This is Tyler Higbee over the past 3 weeks.
Yikes.
And it doesn't make sense to me.
No.
It doesn't.
Who else are they throwing? They literally only throw to Cooper Kupp. That's it. Running backs don't catch passes. Tyler Higbee doesn't catch passes. Allen Robinson doesn't really catch passes. So, yeah.
Van Jefferson does not catch passes.
Their offense is in trouble.
It's a mess. So, yes, I would be off the roller coaster there. There are not a ton of great options at tight end, but what we thought was a really, really valuable piece of their offense, especially for fantasy football, no longer valuable. It's just, it's really hard.
Yeah.
Really hard right now to find a good tight end. All right. Time now for what everybody's looking forward to most, which is a Little Caesars preview. It's brought to you by Little Caesars. It's game day with Little Caesars, the official pizza sponsor of the NFL. Pizza.
Pizza.
Thursday night football. We have the Falcons and the Panthers. Kyle Pitts and DJ Moore kind of like up and down, mostly down, but recently back up. What happens on Thursday night? That's what I'm keeping an eye on. And to be honest with you guys, I have a bit more optimism on DJ Moore, only because with Atlanta, that's their formula.
Yes.
Right? Like throw the ball 20 times a game, maybe. I mean, a little bit more than that, but not a whole lot more than that, right? Carolina, it hasn't been that they haven't thrown the ball a bunch. They have been throwing the ball a bunch. They've just had a quarterback roller coaster, and the quarterback play has not exactly been very good. I think DJ Moore is more likely than Kyle Pitts to repeat this, especially because DJ Moore draws a very favorable matchup with that weak Atlanta secondary. Kyle Pitts still inside my top 10 for tight ends, but I use this term a lot, somewhat begrudgingly. On Sunday, the Bills look to rebound off of a divisional loss. They host the Vikings. We just talked about that just a minute ago, and there's playmakers all over the field in that game. Obviously, you've got guys like Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook and TJ Hawkinson from Minnesota, even Kirk Cousins, who I would not want to start this week because of that vaunted Bills defense. And then for Buffalo, though, I mean, this is the story of the weekend. And by the time we have the podcast tomorrow, hopefully we'll have some level of clarity. But if Josh Allen is all systems go for this game, or at least good to play in this game, you got Josh Allen, you have Stephon Diggs, and really the entire Bills offense has the chance to score a touchdown. If you don't have Josh Allen, then we have to have a really honest conversation about what the value is of those Buffalo Bills skill players with Case Keenum, who is serviceable and solid as a backup quarterback. No doubt about that. Josh Allen might be the best player in the NFL right now. That's how talented the Bills starting quarterback is. And then Monday night, we have a good one. It's the Commanders traveling to play the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles, of course, undefeated. Here's what I'm looking forward to. Can they get Devontae Smith back on track? And Devontae Smith had a bad game this past week. He had just 2 catches on Thursday Night Football for 22 yards. But a good matchup against that Commander secondary that has largely been ineffective throughout this season. Huge opportunity there for Devontae Smith to get back on track. And that right there is a Little Caesars preview for you.
Yeah, pizza.
All right, before we touch Eric Moody.
That's right.
Make Little Caesars the official pizza sponsor of the NFL, part of your game day. Order online during their pizza pregame, 1 hour before NFL games, and get ready for some football and fun. Choose your favorite Little Caesars pizza or pick the toppings you crave. Either way, you win. And speaking of winning, everyone scores with convenient delivery or their in-store pizza portal pickup. So grab some friends and enjoy a few slices during the tastiest hour before kickoff. Pizza!
Did you know there are currently over 2.4 million podcasts in the world, including the one you're listening to right now? And it takes a team of people to help bring these podcasts together. We've got people involved on the video side, the audio side, the social media side, and it takes a lot to do this thing right, and hiring the right people is really important. And whether you're hiring for a podcast or for your growing business, there's only one place that makes it easy, ZipRecruiter. And now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/FFF. ZipRecruiter uses its powerful technology to find and match the right candidates up with your job. Additionally, ZipRecruiter has a complete suite of tools that makes it easy to filter, review, and rate your candidates. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. So if you're a fan of this podcast and if you want to try ZipRecruiter for free, you need to remember our special URL, ZipRecruiter.com/FFF. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/FFF. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. All right, and here he is, our good friend, Eric Moody. Eric, it took a little bit to get you here today, but we're really excited to have you on the show. Good to see your face, dude.
No, likewise. Hey, it's good to talk about fantasy football, even though I'm a little low today because my New Orleans Saints got obliterated last night. But, we won't talk about that.
Yeah, no, we already did talk about it, so you don't have to worry about it. We don't need to talk about it with you as well. Let's talk about some fun things, and let's start with the waiver wire at the quarterback position. This is the most fun conversation I think we're going to have all year. It seems so obvious to me that Justin Fields is going to be the guy, but let's talk about why fans and managers need to roster Justin Fields this week off the waiver wire.
Yeah, Justin Fields, his play has continued to trend up. And you look at over the last 4 weeks, I'm like, he's the top fantasy football player right now, regardless of position. And also, he made history. You look at Fields, he became the first Bears player in a game since Walter Payton back in 1983. Going way back here, they have 100 rushing yards and 2 passing touchdowns in the same game. But over the last 6 games, Fields has averaged 23 fantasy points per game. Has got a great matchup on deck for this week, going up against the Detroit Lions, who are surrendering the most total yards per game to opponents. Pick up Justin Fields if you need a quarterback. I have him ranked as a top 10 QB in our rankings over at ESPN Dopp, so I love him this week.
Did you say the first Bears player since Walter Payton with 100 rushing yards and 2 passing touchdowns?
Yes.
So Walter Payton threw 2 passing touchdowns. So no quarterback has ever done that really in Bears history. Then it is sort of what it feels like.
Yeah, it was a very unique and rare performance, and I know fantasy managers were happy because he had 42 points, I believe, in
Oh
that
my
game.
gosh, it was unreal.
Yeah.
Justin Fields won you some money, especially if you played him in DFS. All right, if you can't grab Justin Fields, unfortunately, and if you can't, I'm really sorry. But who else should you look out there in case you need somebody for this week if you're a Josh Allen manager or someone like that?
I would end up looking at Mr. Jimmy Garoppolo with the San Francisco
Oh.
49ers. He's being overlooked. What I like about Jimmy G is that he's got a matchup against the Chargers defense. They're allowing around 20 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. So I think he's going to be a popular streaming option this week, especially if you can't get Justin Fields. And one thing about Jimmy G, I'm like, he has a very high floor, in my opinion. He scored 16 or more fantasy points in every single game this year except one. And he's got an abundance of playmakers, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle. Great offensive line. Kyle Shanahan, he's positioned for success. So pick up Jimmy G.
Yeah, if you need somebody, I think you're right, especially with the addition of CMC. He just has so many playmakers in that offense to be able to help him get to a good spot if you need a streamer. All right, let's talk about running backs here. And at the running back position, it has been tight and lean all year long on the waiver wire. What about this week in week 10? Is there a running back that you prefer here?
Yeah, it's slim pickings this week at the running back position and wide receiver. But if you are going to pick up a running back, I would pick up Jeff Wilson. He had 12 touches for 72 yards and a touchdown in his Miami Dolphins debut. And I said it in the waiver wire column last week. I'm like, Wilson is very familiar with working in a committee with Raheem Mostert, very familiar with Mike McDaniel's running scheme from their time together in San Francisco. And what was great, for those who have Wilson, I'm like, he played a similar number of snaps as Raheem Mostert on Sunday. And I just think this will ultimately end up being a running back by committee for the rest of the year. So what we saw on Sunday will be what we see week in and week out. And I'm looking at Wilson. If you pick him up, I'm like, he's a weekly high-end flex option with upside, in my opinion.
Absolutely, with everything you know is about that coaching staff, the offense, the way that the Dolphins utilized him week one was pretty insane in spite of the fact that they had Raheem Mostert there and he was healthy. So I am totally with you on Jeff Wilson Jr. That's who I'd grab if I needed a running back off waivers. If Jeff Wilson Jr. is not there, though, because unfortunately you can't always get what you want, Eric, what is it that you would look for as another running back off the waiver wire?
Nice reference there. You
I
know where
appreciate
my
you. That's right.
Hey, we're calibrated that way. But anyway, I digress. So I would look at Gus Edwards, and I know the Ravens are on a bye week, but he should be healthy coming out on the other end of the bye week. One thing that I liked about Gus Edwards in his debut in Week 7, the Ravens tried to feature, or I would say build the running game around him. And look at it this way: he comes back healthy, Week 11. He's going up against now get this matchup. He's going up against the Panthers defense. We all saw what Joe did to that team on Sunday. 211 total yards, 5 touchdowns. And I'm looking at Edwards as like a flex option with upside that week because you're going to have like Travis Etienne on a bye, the Dolphins running backs, Kenneth Walker III will be on a bye, as well as Leonard Fournette. So I think Edwards can help a ton of fantasy managers if they're proactive and stash him this week.
Love that. Really smart play, thinking ahead to next week and getting ahead of the bye weeks that you may have with some of those running backs. So that's a really great call, especially because with him coming back from injury, he's already flying a little bit under the radar there. So love that one. You mentioned, unfortunately, though, just like running back, wide receiver is also a fairly thin position off the waiver wire. So give us the guy that you like this week and understand I'm not going to hold you to it if they don't score 25 fantasy points this week.
Yeah, I would say just 2 players that I like. I'll touch on them briefly. First up is Terrence Marshall, Carolina Panthers. I'm like, he's a wide receiver who's had 15 targets over the last 2 weeks. I know it's uncertainty with the Panthers quarterback situation, but he's getting, I would say, similar snaps and running a similar number of routes as DJ Moore. But also like Donovan Peoples-Jones as well. I'm like over 70 yards with a 35 or more yard catch, in 3 straight games. And also he has Deshaun Watson that'll be coming back from his suspension in Week 13. And the word on the street is that, hey, Watson will start. He'll be the guy. And so that's going to ultimately increase his fantasy ceiling. But he's been solid, I would say, for those that are in deeper formats and still available in a high percentage of leagues. So those are 2 players that I would pick up. As you said, Dopp, I guess, don't hold me accountable if they go bust as opposed to boom, right?
It's a tough week. Sometimes when you look at waivers, it's like, I don't really know what to say here because I don't really feel super confident in any of these guys. And of course, you can make a couple of points based on, the numbers never lie, but it's sometimes tough to be able to find the right guys who are there. All right. So if we're looking at adding guys off of waivers, obviously sometimes you need to be able to make a little bit of room on your roster. Is there anybody that you feel confident in where it's like, hey, if you've got this guy, it's okay to let him go in order to make some room for someone you're adding this week?
Yeah, it's a couple of names that come to mind just where I was looking at the lay of the land, so to speak, in fantasy. But I would say one quarterback would be Jared Goff, just with the other options that are available on the waiver wire that are a little bit more consistent and don't give you as much heartburn during the
Yeah.
games.
Who
I would
can?
end up dropping Jared Goff, Daryl Henderson Jr. I'm like, God, I look at that backfield. You got Akers coming back, and then it's very crowded. So he's someone that I would feel comfortable dropping. James Conner's back in the fold with the Cardinals, so Eno Benjamin, I think is in Dropsville, and Julio Jones and Caleb Huntley are two other players that came to mind. You got Cordero Patterson back in the fold with the Falcons, and so Tyler Algier will continue to have a role. But I look at one player that missed out, Huntley. So those are some players that come to mind, Dopp, that I would drop right.
Yeah, and I would like to add Aaron Rodgers to that list as well. If I'm going out to pick up Justin Fields, knowing that he just lost Romeo Dobbs potentially for a number of weeks, even with Aaron Jones coming back, he already didn't have a ton of pass catching options to begin with, and now losing Romeo Dobbs, you don't love to see that. So I got no problem dropping Aaron Rodgers either. All right, Eric, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Follow Eric at Eric N. Moody on Twitter. You can follow him everywhere else. Eric, tell the people what else you do here for us, just in case this is their first time tuning in to the Waiver Wire.
No, absolutely. So, of course, I write the waiver wire column, for fantasy football. Also do the daily notes, and that's published Monday through Friday. So if you're the type of fantasy manager that's working during the day, busy, family, etc., and you're just wondering what news, do I need to know about? That's the whole purpose of the daily notes. That's published every morning during the weekday. And I also contribute a lot on, the NBA and also the WNBA from a fantasy sports and sports betting perspective. So I wear a lot of hats, but that's all that I do here, Dopp. I don't think I missed anything, did I?
I don't think that you did, although I do want to push back. I've literally never seen you wear a hat. And so I don't know why you have this front as though you wear a lot of hats. I don't know what you're talking about. But I do love you, my friend. It is so good to see you. Love having you on Fantasy Focus. And on behalf of Eric and Stephania and Field, we want you to know we love you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Please love each other. Be kind to yourself. We can't wait to see you tomorrow.